what kinds of policies and training would be put in place for adjunct professors?
Well, first of all, in the Chancellor's role, I don't know that I would put the training in place. I think we have a very capable group of folks that are managing our centers for teaching and learning. So I think we need to continue on the work that is being done in those departments to focus on our adjuncts. I said when I started that what happens in the classroom is the most critical part of student success. And I think that that means that we need to focus much more strongly on professional development for our adjunct faculty. We've taken some wonderful strides, I think, in terms of doing an adjunct faculty program at the beginning of each semester. And I know that we have adjunct faculty that can take advantage of the certificate and can work together throughout the year if they're interested in focusing more on professional development. Much like our students, however, I'm not sure that we can offer this as an option. We are facing a time where many of our classes are taught by adjunct faculty, and I think we will have to put in place policies that expect that adjuncts are participating in professional development if they are going to continue to teach with us. And then I think we have to think very seriously about the programming that is offered to those adjuncts that is also available, I hope, to our full-time faculty. Programming that is focused around pedagogy. Programming that is focused around working with the students that are in community college today. Our faculty, whether they are full-time or adjunct faculty, come to us rich in the training of their discipline. And that's what we want them to be, rich in the discipline that they teach. But more and more, I think we have a responsibility to help faculty work with the students who are coming to us today, students that look at higher education as a consumer. I can't tell you the number of students that I have that walk into my office that say, I paid for this class, I should be getting an A. Sort of like I went to Target and I paid for it, and that should be the result. So I think we're on a good path, but I think we need to be far more deliberate about our expectations of our adjuncts.
Dr. Pfeiffer, I have 4 questions remaining, and we have about 10 minutes in this segment.
Okay.
Besides money, what are the challenges and opportunities specific to St. Louis Community College?
St. Louis Community College, like any of the big community colleges in the country, certainly is facing a challenging time because of a decline in state resources. And for us in the St. Louis region right now, that is mirrored with what I would say is not a real stable local tax environment. It has been stable over the last several years, and we're moving into a year where we think it's going to be flat for the first time in many years. And there is some concern that as we move into next year, we may actually see a decline in those numbers. So certainly, the financial resources are a challenge. But we're also, I think, at St. Louis Community College facing the need to address what it is we want to do to focus in our work in developmental education. Lots of things are going on each of the campuses, and we have to really begin to look at each one of those efforts to figure out what's working, to figure out what it is that could be transferred from one campus to another, or what looks like it's working and maybe we want to build on it. I'm one of those people that thinks that you have to take a certain amount of risk. You have to take some calculated risk, and I don't expect everything to be perfect in the end. I don't expect everything will work. I don't go into something thinking if it doesn't work, then it's just a complete failure. I think we learn a lot from the pieces that don't work very well. And I think we're going to have to do a little bit more of that in terms of the way that we're progressing as we look at developmental education. I've already talked about distance learning. I think that's a major issue for St. Louis Community College. I don't know that I think it's a major issue for every community college, but I certainly think it is one that we need to get focused on. The increased calls for accountability from every level, I think, are going to become a huge challenge for us over the next 2 or 3 years. In our local community, people are asking us how we know what we're doing, but the pressure in the state, and the pressure nationally is only going to increase. In the state, for example, we are in the middle of a conversation right now with the governor and the legislature about performance funding. There are many people that would like to tie our funding to whether or not we perform what we deliver. And that would be a very different sort of funding model for us. We were in Jefferson City yesterday, and that was part of the conversation that we're having about how higher education will be funded for the future. And if you look at the national level, you know, everybody is talking about the completion agenda. Everybody's talking about from Gates to Lumina to President Obama to Governor Nixon, everybody's got their goals about how many more students are going to graduate from college. Well, that's not the only piece of it. You don't want students who just graduate. You need students who have actually learned something while they've been in school and are able to take those things and apply them to whatever their life is about. So I think accountability is going to be a huge issue for us.
Dr. Pfeiffer, to what extent is maintaining current employees a priority for you?
You know, this has been a rough couple of years at St. Louis Community College as we have tried to look to the future and decide what's in the best interest of our institution and how it is that we're going to meet the needs of our students. And so we have seen changes in our employment ranks. We have seen people that have been with us for a period of time who are no longer employed because their positions are no longer here. I'd like to stand here and tell you that my goal would be that everybody who's here today continues to be here and continues to have a job at the college. And you can walk out of the room and tell people that that's what I said. I think the reality of the situation is we must be focused on the work that we need to do around student success. I said when I started that our agenda needs to be about student success. The college needs to focus its resources in that direction. And that means that over several years, we may continue to see a changing landscape in terms of the way people are employed, because I think there are some good conversations that we could have there. We may see changes in the numbers of people who are employed. Ideally, I would like to see everybody remain in employment status and we figure out in the institution how we retrain people so that they can continue to move forward with college for the future.
What do you believe is the role of the Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs?
I think the Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs has a big job at St. Louis Community College. This is the individual that is sort of setting the direction for us in those two arenas. Setting the direction, I don't think, however, means controlling everything that's happening. I think the Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs needs to be engaged in conversations with all of the units that report, in this case through her, to understand the issues that are coming out of institutional research and planning, to understand the issues that are coming up from curriculum. We're doing a number of things right now to look broadly at student affairs. And I think that's the person that needs to convene the individuals who need to be a part of those conversations to set our direction for the future. I also see that person as the individual who is the academic leader, you know, in the general sense of the college, and is the person who is working with, for example, the Centers for Teaching and Learning, as they would think about how to work with professional development for faculty. So it's a position that has very broad influence across the institution, and I think requires a lot of focus on the direction of the institution.
Thank you, Dr. Pfeiffer. I have one last question.
Okay.
And then you may feel free to enter into your closing remarks. Would you support St. Louis Community College initiatives such as Achieving the Dream, the Chancellor's Leadership Academy, and the Centers for Teaching and Learning?
The short answer to that is yes. I'm in a fortunate position because I've been a part of the college's leadership team that has defined those things as those as initiatives for the future. I feel very strongly about achieving the dream. In fact, that St. Louis Community College needs to move this initiative forward, and that we have to figure out how we bring everybody into that particular effort. Planning for future leadership of the college is critical. Some of you know that my own dissertation work focused on the leadership gap in part in community colleges and higher education. The same thing is true in K-12 education. We have to do a better job of looking inside to identify the leaders of the future. And that doesn't mean that we need to be identifying the deans, the vice presidents, the presidents, and the chancellors. What we need to be, that certainly could be part of it, but what we need to be doing is figuring out how we empower folks to take advantage of providing leadership in their own space in the organization. So I think that that is critically important. And I have been a very, very strong supporter of the Center for Teaching and Learning. We've had a Center for Teaching and Learning at the Florissant Valley campus for a number of years, and worked several years ago to actually get them in a good physical space. I think that my tenure here has demonstrated that I think that that's critically important to our success for the future. So. You all, you've been very, very patient. I've not been very funny. I'm sorry about that. Let me just say again that I believe in my heart and soul that this institution's best days are ahead of it, and you all are a critical part of seeing that actually comes to fruition. I would really like to encourage you to think positively about the future of St. Louis Community College, and I would love to be your next chancellor. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to those of you who attended all of the forums. Thank you for the sacrificing time, energy, and effort you need to accept this very important process. Thank you. Have a great day. Let's make sure all the lights are on.